Now, in 1953, a fresh-faced Queen Elizabeth II was crowned. At that time, India's population was about 380 million. British forces were brutally suppressing Kenya's Mau Mau revolt, and UK's former colonies were yet to be independent. It was a time when Britain ruled half the world. It had colonies across continents. They said the sun never set on the British Empire. But soon, Britain was forced to pack its bag and exit many colonies. Countries dropped the Queen as the head of their state. It was a tumultuous period, to say the least, one that the Queen ruled over. Queen Elizabeth II is the longest ruling monarch in the British history. She ruled over the country for 70 years, an enduring symbol as Britain changed beyond recognition. Some describe her reign as the Golden Age, reminiscent of that of her namesake, Elizabeth I, or Elizabeth I. They laud her consistency, her wisdom, and her role as the bulwark of stability in the country. But others say it is an institution that is fading and fit in a 21st century world. Yet, Queen Elizabeth's legacy is remarkable, especially how she helped the monarchy survive an era of rapid change. Elizabeth ascended the throne at the age of 25. Britain was emerging from the ravages of World War II. Rationing was still in place, and Winston Churchill was Prime Minister. Since then, presidents, popes, and prime ministers have come and gone. The Soviet Union collapsed, and Britain's empire is long gone. But the palace says the Queen did not regard her role as historical. She believed that she was merely doing her job. She came to the throne with one thought only: to keep the royal show on the road. During her reign, the Queen has witnessed everything: wars, recession, the Cold War, Brexit, pandemic, you name it. And the Queen has seen it, observed it, been there. She has served, and she has been served by 15 prime ministers. During her reign, there have been 14 United States presidents. She has met 13 of them, barring Lyndon Johnson. It is an impressive legacy, but one that is complicated, especially due to its colonial past. For many of United Kingdom's former colonies, the Queen's death has revived memories of a bloody past, a reminder of a tragic period in their history. Opinion here is still split on what her legacy should be. There is a mixture of grief and nostalgia on the loss of the longest reigning British monarch, but there is also pain. After all, the Queen was a symbol of the British colonial empire, one that ruled using violence or oppression, one that is clinging onto the past. Joining us now is Sarah Richardson from Coventry. She is the Royal Historian at the University of Warwick. Sarah, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Several observers have been critical of the Queen's reign and the Queen's, power. What would you say? Are they justified to actually criticize the Queen now in her death?
I think you have to divorce the institution of the monarchy from the person. So I think criticising her as a person and maybe, she's had to operate within certain protocols is perhaps unfair. But there's certainly a debate that can be had about the role of a monarch in modern society.
All right, but if you look at the modern society, we'll talk about King Charles III in a moment. There have been many who say that the monarch has passed its era. It's time to change. It has not been very conducive to, former colonies. The Commonwealth, if we talk about the Commonwealth, there are some people who say that these countries who are still in the Commonwealth should leave the Commonwealth, should part ways. What do you think?
I think Britain's relationship with the rest of the world is one that is in transition at the moment. I mean, you will know about Brexit, and so therefore that's affecting relationships with Europe. Certainly, when the Queen came to the throne, decolonisation and the transition from former colonies to independent states was well underway and continued throughout her reign. I think this is a moment where certain Commonwealth countries will discuss whether they think it's still right to have a British monarch as their head of state. But I think that means that what happens is that Britain and the monarchy have to change their relationship with the rest of the world. And so I think there will be a sort of an unsettling and difficult period coming, particularly with the countries that you mentioned in the Caribbean and maybe Australia, who are already having those debates.
Let me prod you further. When you say change their relationship, what do you mean? What are you talking about when you say Britain should change their relationship with these former colonies or with the Commonwealth?
So I think Britain's always had historic ties with a lot of these countries, going back, into the 17th, 18th centuries. So those relationships will continue. It's the institutional relationship in a way that will evolve. So the formal things like the monarch being, or the British courts, for example, being the supreme courts, the monarch being head of state, that might need some adjustment. And I think that is something that Britain is already undergoing in a way with its relationships with Europe after Brexit. So, the European Union is a little bit like the Commonwealth, and Britain's left that. So I think in all of these things that there are there's political changes with governments and leadership, but the monarch has a symbolic role, and that is definitely going to change. I think it means that instead of doing state visits, they will be invited to do overseas tours.
Right. We've not talked about the impact that the Queen's death will have on these Commonwealth countries. What do you think the impact will be like?
So I think in terms of the Queen's legacy, I think, in fact, there will be sort of fondness and overseas. I think it's a time when somebody dies to sort of celebrate their contributions. But I also think that it's a time where you look forward, and I think there will be discussions about the role of and the institution of the monarchy going forward. So I think her legacy will be that she undertook quite successfully that transition from empire to Commonwealth, but maybe it's the end of that era now.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.